I like it to be able to see the previews for upcoming movies. Sometimes you get them for TV shows as well. When we were at the theater with my grandsons, my oldest grandson, Finn, was looking at the preview approved for audiences of under teenage years. And he was looking at the preview of the next movie. And I said, Finn, would it be fun to go to that movie too? 10-year-old Finn looked at the trailer that he saw with all of the scenes that were the biggest and the most important from the movie, and he said, nope, don't want to go to that one, Grandma, there's kissing. We make decisions about what we see in a small amount. And we get so many previews in our scriptures about what is yet ahead. We don't have a full picture. We can't see the whole thing now. We just get a little bit here and a little bit there. And it gives us an imagination of things that are coming soon. And the previews tonight about eternal life and life with God forever attract our attention. Now that beautiful passage in Isaiah, an Old Testament lesson, as people were looking forward out of the turmoil and the things that are going on in this world, and we know what those things are like. Isaiah was saying, look ahead, catch the preview. Are you going to be able to catch everything that's going to be there? It's going to be like a banquet like you've never seen before. There will be rich things, plenty and enough for everyone, an abundance of all the things you could ever wish for. Sounds like a great deal, doesn't it? I'm going to sign up for that. And he says it's going to be a place where the tears will be wiped away from her eyes. A time of celebration, a time of hope. And God will remove the shroud of fear and shame. When it goes to something so amazing as that wonderful banquet. I'm not sure I'm dressed for it. I don't have the black tie or the formal or all the things that one would want to have for such an amazing thing. But God takes away the shame. God takes away the fear that we might not be worthy or that we don't belong. The psalmist said, who can possibly come into the holy place where God is? Certainly not people like us, who sin, who fall short, who live in the misery of the things that go wrong in this world. But Isaiah and the psalmist are very clear. The Lord is mighty in battle against sin and death. He takes away the shroud of fear and of shame. He gives us a gift of righteousness, and we are prepared and dressed in God's finest as we prepare to see this coming attraction. Now, as we think about the next things, the next slide, please. Coming soon to a life near you. Previews, besides attracting our attention, they also inspire imagination. As pastors, Pastor Mark and I are privileged to be part of many weddings, wedding anniversary celebrations, and some very special times when people who have been together for a long time are celebrating, wow, like my parents, 65 years of being together. I always talk to our brides and grooms about that very special moment that the wedding coordinators call the first glance. It inspires imagination. The first moment that the bride and the groom get to see each other dressed in their finery, in the absolute best that they have, probably the most expensive clothes they will ever wear in their lives, for one day, for an incredible day when they are coming with commitment. They are coming to pledge faithfulness. They are coming to share a love that is meant to last a lifetime. And the excitement and the preparations are enormous for some people. But no matter how small or how big that is, that first glance on the wedding day is awe-inspiring. A groom will light up his eyes. The bride will gasp. It's real. It's coming. Prepared for each other. Now that beautiful text in Revelation, if you can catch the imagination of what's going on, the writer is talking about what's going to happen in the last times. As Lutherans, we think of last times with death, with resurrection, with the final judgment, and with eternal life forever in God's great glory. And when we see these things coming to pass, all of the things in this world will be made new. There will be no more sin again. There will be no more death. Even this world will be transformed and changed. And people will have a brand new relationship. They will be ready to be with God forever, graced with His grace alone. And the imagination of the writer of Revelation says he saw the heavens come down to earth, and the earth was dressed like a bride awaiting her groom. We often have this imagery in the church about the church being the bride of Christ, of waiting for this moment, for this extraordinary time when faithfulness is pledged, when commitment is made, when new life begins. And as the writer says, God is now making His home with us. And He keeps us and protects us and guides us and loves us beyond imagining. We had some images in the songs that we sing tonight about heavens with gates of pearl, streets of gold. They're beautiful, jeweled images that simply spark our imagination into something that is wonderful and powerful and new. And can't you just wait for that moment when it will come? We are like that bride, preparing for that very special day. And we wait anxiously and patiently, preparing ourselves for a fantastic and extraordinary event when God grants us that gift of everlasting life. Now, the last idea that I want to share with you, I want you to remember that the best is yet ahead. We've got previews of what's coming, but that's all they are. Our ideas, our human faculties, can only grasp a little. But there is so much more, and the best is ahead of us, not behind us. No matter what we're facing, no matter what difficulties there are in this world, there is more yet that God has of delight and hope and vision and reunion with those we love, and a place to be among the saints in light and be dressed in resurrection bodies, ready for life eternally. Now, in this incredibly beautiful story in John chapter 11, Jesus is called to be at the home of Mary and Martha and Lazarus. He doesn't go right away. Mary and Martha call to him because Lazarus is sick, and they are very faithful people, and they are quite sure, they know in their minds, that Jesus can heal Lazarus and the problems will go away. But Jesus tarries. He does not come right away. He could have, but he didn't. And when he finally arrives at the home of Mary and Martha, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. In those days, that meant he's really dead. There is no hope of any kind of resuscitation. The spirit and soul is gone. It's really, really, really dead. And so Martha and Mary talked to Jesus. Mary had faith. She knew that Jesus could have done something, and she comes to him with that sign. Lord, if you'd been here, I know that you could have healed my brother. He would not have died. How many times does that kind of prayer come from our hearts to God? If only, God, you would have done this one thing, I wouldn't feel the tragedy and the hurt that I feel now. And the gift of the imagination and the prayers that we set before God don't always happen. There's a reason for that. Because God comes to us to stand by us in the tragic times, to be with us in the times of sorrow. You notice how Jesus wept too. He helped Mary. He stood by her in faith, and he felt her sorrow. And then Martha comes, and she says, we should be able to have faith, Lord. And he asks, do you believe, Martha? Yes, Lord, I believe in the resurrection, although I think the resurrection is sometime way far off, when I will see Lazarus again, when all of this will happen. And Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. And Jesus then goes to the tomb, and he says to Martha some important words. He says, didn't I tell you that if you have faith, you will see the glory of God? That's the kind of faith that God puts in our hearts, friends. He puts in our hearts a faith that leads us to imagine, to depend upon, to think about, to revel in the glory that is yet to be when we will see God in all of his glory, and we will be face to face and dressed for life with him. Didn't I tell you, says Jesus. And then he goes to the tomb, has them open it, and he calls Lazarus out. Things change. You see, God had a different vision. Instead of just healing Lazarus from something that was before death, Jesus brought Lazarus out of death entirely. And he shocked people, and he opened people's imagination, and he brought with them a brand new vision of what God is about in our lives. He is death-destroying and life-giving. And the previews focus us forward, looking ahead, because the best is yet to be. So Lazarus comes out. Lazarus is called out of death, and we too are called out. Called out of the things that bind us, out of the things that weigh us down in this world. I had a friend who was a doctor, lived in Duluth, and many years ago, he was struck with a cerebral aneurysm. He sort of understood some of the things that were going wrong with him that day. He'd gone into his office, didn't feel so well, ended up going out to another office of a doctor and said, I feel funny. The doctor took one look at him and said, you're going to the hospital. And my friend Peter was in a coma for many days. He was a man of faith, a man who had helped so many people, and now he was struggling to hang on to every bit of life that he could. Family gathered around him. People were praying in all kinds of places, and we weren't sure that Peter would survive this very difficult thing. But sooner or later, Peter began to change, and he came out of the coma, and he had many months of rehabilitation but able to go back to a modified form of his practice as a doctor and continue to use his medical knowledge. He was freed from that death and brought back. But Peter talks about that time when he was in the coma, and he could remember leaving this world. He could remember that he was in a place of beauty and calm. It was tremendously wonderful. He felt warm, inspired. I could stay here forever, he was thinking. And he thought he saw some people that he knew. And then he felt something like a hand on his shoulder. And as he turned, he thought he knew who he was looking at. And a voice said, "Peter, I do have a place prepared for you here, but not now. You need to go back. People need you there." Peter awoke from his coma after having that near-death experience. And he knew for everything that he was able to share with people that he had seen the Lord. There are previews that come to us in many different kinds of ways. I always feel like I can see Peter sitting with the Lord and his hand on his shoulder. And I think of the saints that have gone before us, of people that are near and dear to us, people that I've known over the many, many years. I think about a whole crowd of people that are around the throne singing praises, who are clothed in light, who are full of grace, who have no tears, only the joy of that life so close to God that there is nothing else that we need to worry about. I wonder if you yearn for those days like I do. We know that the best is yet ahead. There will be times when we don't want to leave this world, and we shouldn't. But there is so much more. More that we can share, more that we can dream about, more that we can recognize. And so tonight, as you light candles, remember people who have gone before. So many of those saints who have given you a breath of faith, who have brought you along your own faith journey. And remember those that you will share faith with also in this world. And give thanks to God for that gift of grace and life. We've got the previews, but the best is yet ahead. Amen.